Beautiful, beloved brothers and sisters, soul family. It's amazing to be on Alive again. I am in a new location since the last time I would have been live on my channel, and I'm back in Australia and returned to my homelands for a temporary short trip before heading back overseas. And the location has some interesting Wi-Fi, weather, and different influences to the energy. So what I will ask is, if you're receiving this, please let me know that the sound, as long as my sound is in coherence and you're able to receive me, then that's all I ask. So if you are tuning in, please let me know about sound. And my apologies for the delay. My channel is online. This is going to be a live energy reading in relation to the Christos and the distorted Trinity. So as you're jumping in, if you haven't received one of my transmissions before, please take a couple of deep breaths into your body, allow yourself to ground and connect. I am a conduit and oracle, and I work in quantum energetics. So anything that I speak, say, and do within this moment of presence with you as a receiver and a co-creator of this experience, you may hear, feel, see, remember things that are being brought to the surface for your trajectory, your ascension, and your evolution. That can mean having tingles, sensations. You might have profound insights drop in, and that would all be normal for the energetics in between. So make sure that you are centered in your mind-heart coherence and allowing yourself to come into full receptivity. To do that, simply place your hand on your heart. If you'd like, you can place your other hand, your left hand, on your sacral and take 3 deep breaths. So we'll do that together. Breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, and breathing out. And anytime that you feel yourself disconnecting from your channel, anytime that you feel yourself disconnecting from your heart space, just place your hand on your heart, return home, come back here. The times that you will do that is when things can be a little bit overwhelming for the cognitive mind. Your energy body might be feeling it's hitting a capacity point, and your default program as a human being is to disassociate when things become intense, fearful, or in a survival mechanism. And so there are many different programs that we have within our body that will default us out of our essence and our truth. So anytime that happens, just letting yourself know it's safe to be in a lot of energy, it's safe to remember, and it's safe to stay in focus, even if you're not cognitively making sense of what I'm saying. So I am Geeia Ariati, and I am of sound heart and sound mind. I am the assigned oracle for the 144 and beyond, and I am guided to bring you this transmission in relation to the distorted Trinity and what that looks like and how that's showing up in your external world. Oh, so when it comes to doing the work, we do a lot of self-work. We do a lot of self-inquiry, do a lot of looking at our shadows. We look at a lot of concepts of polarity. We look at our masculine, our feminine, and we deconstruct ourselves from the inner. We look at where we're fragmented. We look at where there might be some level of influence, whether that be technologies, entities, different presences, whether that's a disassociated part of our emotions, anger, past lives. All of that we do from the inner. But there's a time on the journey and a time that has occurred in rapid succession since the 8-8 portal and the Christos anchoring in the earth that has allowed for many to accelerate their journey very, very fast. Very, very, very fast. And this rapid acceleration is showing a point of the trajectory of transcendence. So transcendence being that you transcend the 7 chakra systems and you come into a transcended state of beyond ego and separation. So you're heading into the place of being in pure presence. which means that energy moves through you and you have a sense of sovereignty and freedom return because you are no longer tethering between these concepts of polarity, or what we would call coming into divine union. So that 8th octave, or that 8th chakra, is the energy of divine union, where you move beyond light and dark, up and down, in and out, masculine and feminine. And you see the wholeness of reality. Now, in this, there is a part of the initiation process or the purification process where human beings will their focus has been so internal, and then there is a refocus and a redirection on the outer world. And the part of this journey is seeing that everything you've come to see within, everything that you've come to see about the universal structures of reality, the fabric of the universe, and these different ideas that you are to recognize and witness, they're actually in your external world as well. And that there is no difference in dimensional planes of existence from your inner hierarchical construct of ego development, or the different selves or higher selves, the monadic self, the galactic self, the unified self, your universal consciousness, your human self. Ooh. That they are all the same, and that they need to merge together, which is bringing heaven to earth. So your earth is your human, that is your human fleshy body, and your higher monadic God self is the heaven. And you need to bring these into oneness if you're wanting to live in that sovereign self as your son and daughter of God, the goddess, and the God expression that we all are in truth. And this trajectory for those that are specifically Christos carriers. Now, not every one of the bringers of change is a Christos carrier, so this may or may not resonate for you. It may resonate for someone that you know in your field, but you will still have some concept of the Trinity that is distorted, or what we could say inverted. And that's because we are all traversing the same themes, the same paradigms, the same thought forms at some level. It's just whether we see it from our human or our universal, earthly realmed expression, or we see it up from the monadic self and the higher self. So the monad has just as many core wounds as what the human has. It's just that those wounds are interpreted different to that of what the human interpretation is. So say that there was a sense of your monad expressing anger. It comes from a very different expression of anger than what your human has. And it's not that those emotions or feelings do not exist, those sensations, those energy signatures. It's just the vibrational state of how they're expressed, and how you interpret them is very, very different. And so as you're coming into more awareness of your monad, your highest expressions, your unified self, that the aspect of you being that many of you have either opened to Christos energy, or you have either activated yourself. You might be in the direct experience of it. I hold the Christos codes. I have anchored those into my being. So if you're here, you're being exposed to this energy, which means that what I'm about to share is existing in your reality. It's just seeing where it's playing out and to what degree. And to start to make sense of what and how everything in the current creation has been used for us and against us. So whenever you see there's a limitation, there's also an expansion possibility. Wherever there's a distortion, there's a recreation. So we can reconcile our mistakes, because when we've made a mistake, we also know the correction codes, or the correction transformation of consciousness in shifting our behavior. And that can be done in many, many different layers. I am aware that my brain is really activated right now, because there is a direct channel that wants to come through. And I do feel that it would be most beneficial to directly channel this. yet I'm trying to get out what I need to get out for the human cognitive mind first, because sometimes in direct channel, there is a lot between the words. So there is there is a talking to your remembered parts, talking to your God self that already knows all of the information. To make sense of that channel, it's helpful for individuals to have their human be spoke to and then their God self be spoke to, so that you can start to merge the gap between the heaven, the earth, and so those synapses and those pathways of consciousness can come together. So for your human being, in relation to what is going to be directly channeled, there is a very physical representation to show you the inner world in your outer. And that is in relation to the descended consciousness, the ascended consciousness, and the consciousness that tethers in between. So when we look at a Trinity, you've always got 3 pillars. All 3 pillars are important, and you might move between all 3 pillars at different times. The point of a Trinity is actually not to move between them, but to see them all and come into the center point and transcend the idea of the Trinity. So the Trinity, once transcended, is the Holy Grail, and you see all 3 perspectives are equal to each other and are needed for the evolution of whatever that energy is that comes into play. That all 3 pillars hold that that power point of the signature that sits within and between. And we have many Trinities, many different versions of Trinity. You have the Mother, Father, Child Trinity. You have the Mind, Body, Soul Trinity. You have a Trinity of intuition, which is your heart brain, or your heart intuition, your gut intuition, and your splenic intuition. So that's a Trinity. You have a Trinity of consciousness, which is your crown chakra with your third eye, with your pineal gland. That is a Trinity that creates a further construct of consciousness to be used in unison or wholeness together. But if we're only functioning from one of these pillars, then we are out of full balance or synergy to our capacity of what we could be. We might be reliant on our heart's intuition, but we don't listen to our gut or our splenic intuition. And so sometimes the things that we're intuitively guided for or to, if we felt our gut intuition, we would see that the guidance isn't quite how we've received it, because we've missed some missing information, or we've interpreted it. Could you slow down? They must be quite urgent to talk to you. So the interpretation of I'm getting in trouble, because if I had have actually made myself be back here on time, this wouldn't be as rapid in its information stream. So I'm being told that I pushed the boundaries of capacity of my timeline, and how important it is to meet specific juncture points or choice points. So I am taking full accountability and ownership that I pushed the limits an extra 6 minutes past 10:10. There is time, and there is also no time. And that's the importance of this reality, is if you don't understand that you are bound by time here as a human being, then you'll miss the points that there are very important juncture points. There are very important choices that won't return, won't come back. Not here, not in the human experience. You are going to die. That is a point of time limitation. If there's any limitation in this reality, it is time. And we can bend it, and we can move it, and we can manipulate it, but we cannot transcend it, not in physical reality. And that's a part of universal law. That's what we chose to bind ourselves to in this reality. So that's important to be very aware of, because otherwise you do not allow yourself to make the most of the time that you have as a human being on this planet. And if it's your last life, you might want to rethink that structure and thought form. Okay, thank you for softening. All right, coming back to the Trinity and the importance of understanding the Trinity. So there's Trinities for all kinds of things. The Trinity that I'm talking about today is a distorted Trinity of what we could say the archetypal expressions of transcendence. So a transcended Trinity holds the Holy Grail. The Trinity in the upright position allows for you to see ascension, descension, and the middle way, or the point between we could say the gray scale. We could say light, dark, and gray. And that Trinity of transcendence, which holds many other Trinities in it, when collapsed, that Holy Grail of mind, body, and soul allows you to come into a point where you're in pure present consciousness. You're in that 8th octave. Now, to get there, you have to see the Trinity from within, externally. You need to see that every single inner reality is in your outer reality. So what comes up and what will be shown in your physical experience is a human or a being the descended consciousness, one being the ascended, and one being the confused or the in-between, the gray scale. And the reason that this is showing up, because we all play roles to each other. We're all choosing to play a specific role here in the human experience. And we are also choosing to remember God in our own trajectory. We can go to God through descension and hit the point of death and return back to source frequency, or we can ascend and go up into the heavens and return to source frequency, or we can see the middle way of divine union and come into the not light, not dark, but what is truth, and come into that point of understanding both concepts. Now, with the reality that is showing up, and it's a very uncomfortable initiation, because you are asked to see that there are individual beings that will not have the same intention as you, the same agenda as you, and they will be playing the role of the descended consciousness. Now, the descended consciousness in the 3-dimensional human reality is the 2D and the 1D. And that is the energy of a more unconscious expression that needs others to feed to maintain life. So anything that is in the 2 and the 1 dimension below this reality does not have enough light source or life force to maintain survival without feeding off another. So it's a survival mechanism. It's how one maintains their ability to be present in this reality. Now, that is very hard for a human being to look at, that there are beings that purely feed of other light sources to stay alive, and that consciousness cannot maintain. Now, you can see it as we want to see it as a very metaphorical. We want to see it as it's not intentional. We want to see it as that the malicious acts that take place, or the sinister things that we see, is coming from a place of not being aware. And there is a truth to that, but there's also an illusion. And that's the paradox of this universe, is that a lot of the time there is very intentional malice to feed off fear, to feed off control, to feed off power. And very real physical human beings in your day-to-day life will do this. They need it for their safety. They need it for their security. They need it to provide for themselves. And so these beings are going to be coming through as your veil of illusion, because you've dropped it from your inner. Now you need to drop it from your outer. Is that the veil of illusion of what you thought people were, because you had your beautiful, sparkly, blind goggles on because you want to see everything as love and light and acceptance and spiritual narrative, is that people will be showing a different version of themselves, or they are just showing themselves, and you're able to see it because you're no longer denying it from your reality, because you've done enough inner work that you can see it on the outer. Now, that means that those that are holding this Christos energy or are choosing rapid acceleration are going to see the opposite. So when one rapidly ascends, their counterpole rapidly descends. This is how everything in this universe works. Everything is a balance point. Everything is yin and yang. So if you're rapidly ascended, then you know without a doubt, based on universal law, there is someone in your direct vortex that is rapidly descending, and that it's showing up somewhere there for you. And then you have that middle way, or what we could call a bridging energy. And that bridging energy can be a bridging person. It can be someone who's influenced by the descension and the ascension, that they have a sense of not knowing which way or which direction to go. And what that means is for those that are really rapidly ascending into a higher frequency to be anchored into their being, that this bridging individual or this human that's going between the ascension descension opens up a pathway for the person that's choosing rapid acceleration, expansion, or Christos, that allows for descension to enter back into their reality. So say you are someone who has stepped out of contrast, you've stepped out of drama or toxicity, maybe you've healed your trauma, your childhood trauma, and you have stepped out of the dynamics of narcissistic abuse, or you've stepped out of the dynamics of playing into the victim mentality, or that you don't have a problem with psychic attack, or whatever it is, this version of a past version of yourself that did have this at some point in your life, and it's re-entering. And there's confusion as to why there is a certain thing re-entering. Maybe it's even that your sexual trauma is resurfacing, and there's icky energy or seedy energy, maybe that feeding vampire energy that you're like, I haven't dealt with this for a really long time. What is going on? Now, if that is you and you're sitting in this ascension, rapid transformation consciousness, it's because the being that you have in your life that's in the middle, or the confusion point, tethering, their energy has allowed for an entry point through your connection to the descended aspects. So your consciousness is sitting in this level. Your bridging individual, or the tethering person, the one that's unsure of if they're going up or down or in or out, is sitting here, but they're connected to a descended consciousness. So what happens is by there's actually a word for this. By association, you have a connection point into a universe or a reality that you've transcended, because there is someone that you're associated with that is still functioning from this plane of existence. And so what you're being shown is that you have a choice. Whilst you're locking yourself, see, that's a Trinity. If you look at it, there's the ascended, and then there's the middle, and then there's the descended. So you're linked by association to this dynamic where you can, very real, if you're sitting here and you're in the ascended point, lower your vibration to such a way that you cause illness, disease, stagnation, relationship dynamics break down, monetary loss, all sorts of things will happen. If you've been functioning from here and then you get pulled down into this weighted expression, that influence of descended consciousness is going to affect you. And that is very uncomfortable for someone who might be very stable or has kept themselves in a place of a specific frequency for a specific time, and then an old reality surfaces and roars its head. And so this Trinity is then an opportunity for this individual, the one that's sitting in the tethering point, the one that's like, I want to grow, but I'm also attached to my last identity. I really want to follow God and be in devotion. You inspire me so much. You inspire me so much that I'm devoted, I'm excited, I'm curious, but I'm still attached to these things. I'm still attached to this person. I'm still attached to this material possession. And this is what is causing this individual not to be able to quantum leap, right? Because if you look at that, if this person lets go of the descended personality or conscious or the human expression that is there, that if the release of that lower energy happens, then this person can then jump, literally jump up if they release the descended consciousness attachment. Now, it's showing up in human beings or in other beings specifically. But if you are not seeing this in a human representation, you may see it in an identity representation. You might see that descended consciousness as a job. You might see that descended consciousness as a family construct. You might see that descended consciousness as a way that you have created your life, and that you realize that as this descended aspect of reality still exists, that you in this space cannot coexist with this anymore. You can't, you're going to start to effectively lower your vibration and kill yourself. So that's what happens, is your life force is drained from you. Your life force is suctioned from you, siphoned from you, and taken from you because you're attached to something that is not of the true essence of your evolvement. But you can't evolve until you let go of that. So this Trinity is providing so much opportunity for you to see the people or the experiences in your life. What in my life is sitting in ascension? What beings am I sitting in this ascension? Is someone that is my partner, is my best friend? Where are these real true realities showing up so that I can figure out my truth and my direction in clarity? Because when you're in this Trinity, things look really confusing. And it's really, really hard to make sense of your guidance because there's a lot of trickery that takes place. Because this descended aspect, whether it's internal or if it's someone in your reality, knows, if it's a construct of your mind, knows that death is imminent, right? It will fight to the death. That's what the shadow does. Descended two and one-dimensional consciousness has to survive through the feeding of other light sources. So it will do everything within its means to hold on to control. So if this is a human being that's holding this, will manipulate you, gaslight you, trick you, guilt you, shame you, and use every possible thing under the sun in covert and overt ways to stay in that construct of reality. Because if what happens, and if you are the descended person, it's okay to be the person that's stuck in the mud and doing this, but it's also an opportunity to choose, because you have a choice. When you're in descension, you can either choose to descend further and meet through that point of disconnection where you've forgotten God and that you remember through that leap, or you let that part of your consciousness die off and you choose something different. This is where someone would choose rapid enlightenment from a point of depression or addiction. And that is getting to that point of absolute darkness, blackness. There's nothing else, right? There's nothing else there. That this allows for that being. Now, if you're the in-between of the Trinity and you're the in-between, you've got to be aware that you're feeding into that. That's what you're doing. You're feeding into the descended consciousness and also enabling, which means that that individual cannot choose either to die or to ascend or evolve. We can look at this in a way of the grays. Okay, so I'm gonna zoom it right out. And if we look at the human reality, so we still have the agendas from the reptilians, We still have the agenda from the Draconians. We still have agendas where the mantis is your in-between middleman. Perfect. Thanks. So the mantis beings are your in-between. They're the ones that literally waver between and balance point, because they're like, I don't want to mess with anyone because I'm too fragile, right? So that would be your mantis beings. And then you have your Pleiadians and your Sirians and these different energies here. So if we look at Earth and the different consciousnesses that are still here, we no longer have grays. There is no grays consciousness. There is not even grays technology left on the Earth. It has died because the grays race chose not to evolve. They didn't choose to evolve, and their civilization was using other light sources to advance their technology, to ascend their human, to ascend their race and their civilization, and to advance and to stay alive. But instead of evolving their consciousness, they were taking it from all other places and sources. And so there became a point on the planet where the vibration of the Earth and the atmosphere and the bandwidth here was too high for them to maintain their existence here. So this is no different to what I've just explained, that there is points of a death moment in some form, that it can no longer coexist. The Greys could no longer coexist on planet Earth. I don't actually know where they are. I don't care. My focus is the Earth. None of their technology is still here and working, which means when you've been going through your learnings and your experiences, anything that shows up is a past trauma that needs alchemizing out, but you won't be finding them visiting you in your channels. You won't be finding them visiting you in your meditations, because they're effectively extinct from universal consciousness. Beautiful. Okay. Now that I have shared that from your human lens and given you some insight around what's taking place, I am going to directly channel from the Council of One. So the Council of One, my monadic self sits at a representative of the Council of One. And I want to explain channels of council's interpretation for your discernment, and to also explain why anyone would communicate with a council in the first place. I have communicated with many councils as I've evolved, and I've also evolved beyond different councils as I've ascended into a higher understanding of God consciousness. The councils are a group of beings. They are a group consciousness. Now, when you work in a group consciousness, you have multiple perspective lenses that show you a middle point or a greater truth. That's why we have councils. The Galactic Federation was a federation of beings that had beings of all races of constellations in this galaxy come together for the middle point of what would function best for planet Earth, right? And they're supposed to have a common goal. Supposed to. Now, the different councils that people communicate with will have different agendas. So the common goal of, say, the Galactic Federation is not sovereignty. The Galactic Federation has a common goal of the human experiment and evolution. Now, evolution is very different to sovereignty. Evolution means we don't actually care about human life. We just care about the evolvement of this creation. So there is a dishonor of life that takes place, which is why I refuse to work with them. Now, they have this concept of collateral. So if there's an agenda, the collateral is like, take one for the team. That's their interpretation. Is their common goal is evolution for the human race. That does not mean honoring of life. That does not mean union. That does not mean sovereignty. That does not mean God's law. So I will not speak anymore to them because it's not necessary. Then you have the Unity Consciousness Council. Now, this is a council called Coyotes, and they sit just above the 9th dimension, in between the 10th, as the bridging reality. So the universal law sits in the 10th dimension, and that is where you have the Council of Coyotes. Coyotes means the unification of yin and yang, masculine and feminine. Now, they have some beautiful concepts. They are very high level information. Some of my early channels you will find were channeled from Coyotes, and I had a representation on that council. So the pillars of different individuals shows for a greater truth. Then there is higher evolved ones as well. So the Council of One is up beyond. That's where you have a council of consciousness, of energies from different perspectives that are in their God essence, so that they can bring through as much truth as possible to our human cognitive mind, to our concepts of reality. Now, the reason that I do channel and communicate from that point rather than my monadic or God essence self is that God in truth doesn't have a voice. God doesn't have an expression. God doesn't have a point of view. God is all things, and source frequency knows and doesn't have to be interpreted, doesn't have to be spoken, doesn't have to have a understanding or an identification of what God is. God just is. So whilst we have the separation point, when we're in full direct connection with God, it just is. And if you've had a godly experience, you know that. There is, I cannot tell you, the one thing that we have in this reality is, I remember someone asking me to explain God. And I was like, oh, really? Do you know how many books have been written and how many channels have been created and how many interpretations from different lenses just to explain the very thing that is unexplainable in word, unexplainable to the mind? It can only be felt and experienced. And so a council does their very best to give you an interpretation through the separation point, as they have there is a separation point, because as soon as you try and make sense of what just is, you create a separation point. And that is where there is enough separation to say, okay, human mind, this is what God's saying to you, and we're going to give you multiple expression of God is. So you've got this this consciousness, this consciousness, this consciousness, this all coming together to share a message that is of a more I can't even say broader, a more refined resonance to that which is unexplainable. So that is why I speak there, because my monad has one lens of perspective. And I can share a lot of amazing information, and I can share a lot from one lens that would be very resonating and probably very high level to most individuals that would listen. Yet it is not the highest truth, because I am just one representation of God. I am one representation of communicating through my separation point, the language or the truth of God. And so it allows for a clear communication point. So in that, we will allow for whatever is wanting to come through from the Council of One to be received. So in that, I'm just going to ask that you receive the message through closed eyes and through an open heart. And we allow for whatever energy, collective, bringers of change, activation, alchemy is there, and that you just allow yourself to receive without intellectualizing it. Allow yourself to feel without deciphering. Whatever is important for you will come out on the other side. Whatever part of this will land, it will land at exactly the right time that you're able to make cognitive sense of it. Okay. So closing your eyes down. And we're going to take some really deep breaths together. And as you take deep breaths, I'm just asking you to hold your pillar of light, to hold your source connection, and to be in receptivity, to receive only that which is there for your highest good, and only that which is in resonance to your soul, to your truth, to your sovereignty. Taking a deep breath in and out, in and out, in and out. We've been awaiting this group consciousness shift for quite some time, where there has been a trajectory that was placed within the divine plan of the bringers of change to meet a point of consciousness where your individuality became that of a dissolved illusion, and you begin to see that the mirror of another is truly a reflection of yourself. What we mean by this is that your collective consciousness of that of the bringers of change, and we do not mean the human consciousness, nor do we mean any other agendas, but the 144 and beyond, as you may like to label it, as we will work with the frameworks of your language, is that you are here with a very specific task, role, or job description that you have chosen to embark upon as a human in this expression. And the points of evolution, the shifts of time with planetary and numerology sequences, that there are timelines, there are structures, there are signatures that all place for a very divine point of meeting or aligning to a choice point. And that choice for the bringers of change, in which we are acknowledging your arrival in this specific way, has manifested over the last 3-week period. This has been the ripple off the back of what you would consider to be your Lion's Gate portal, and a time that has drastically transformed the conscious choice and recognition that you are actually not bound by polarity. The individual consciousness has come to recognize that by opening yourself to the higher frequency of Christos or Christ consciousness, however receptive you were at that point in time, is that you allowed yourself to release the attachment to the karmic distortion of dissension or darkness. That the idea that you need to meet yourself in challenge, contrast, resistance, conflict has all started to become that of an old way of thinking. A limitation point that when you recognize that you can choose beyond, that construct of reality is just another illusion. That to be here in your human experience, you can choose to be that of a Christos or Christ consciousness bearer, and that you do not have to meet any aspect of a reality that has that of what you are not holding or experiencing through your lens as an individual. This allows for you to shift the possibility for the collective consciousness on the earth. That as you have decided that you will see through the lens of light, or illumination being that of information and not lack of information, means that you are able to walk through your expression without the same previous ideas of what this reality has been told it must be. That blocks, limitations, foundations of what has been known, constructs, frameworks will dissolve away, as they are all concepts of mind. Mind constructs that if you release that point of attachment to darkness, contrast, limitation, challenge, initiation, that you choose the illumination point, or you choose the connection point, that there is no need for disconnection. That disconnection in itself is an illusion, and that the individual experience is showing you through your remnants of contrast and attachments to what has been, through your physical expression and experience. So the Trinity, in which Geeia has just spoken into, is only there as a way to say, you no longer have to be this. You can choose the center point of the Trinity, or the Holy Grail, the choice point of connection, beyond the different identifications of this way, that way, the middle way. What if every single one of you chose the illumination of the all-knowing infinite being that you are? What would your reality look like, rather than what you are experiencing right now? If you look at a point of suffering within your experience right now, and you choose to see it, if you chose to trust your connection point to God without rationale, without justification, without proving, without a need to know why you're choosing, what would be on the other side of what seems to be a challenge? Can you perceive that? How can you meet what you're considering an issue, something that you are not in harmony with, and see it as a way that there is a full connection possibility? That connection, although you cannot perceive it because you have not chosen it, and this is the very point of trust and faith and surrender into the God expression, is you cannot prove God, you cannot speak God, you cannot interpret God. God just is. If you met your experience that is causing this perceived disconnection that has manifested into a physical element or a physical contrast in the choice point of true connection to illumination, what would be your chosen energetic expression? What would you need to do, be, say, and express from that remembrance? As you receive this awareness, we know that there are many parts of your human cognitive mind that will try to rationalize, dissect, intellectualize, wrong, and make sense of. But the very point of that of choosing beyond separation is to know that the separate mind, that of the intellectual, the egotistical, the separate shadow or disassociated, not self-infiltrated mind, cannot conceive and perceive. It is only from your sound mind connection, where infinite consciousness can guide and tell you how to meet a point of truth. in the simplicity after interpreting your complexities. Your brain being the complexity in its ego construct, and your sound mind is the simplicity of clarity. How can you choose sound thought? How can you choose a truthful heart? How can you choose the expression of God and see that of the truth of your reality? To allow for that energy to move through you and to synergize and alchemize, we're just going to recalibrate using sound and vibration through song, light codes, and frequencies of light. So just allowing yourself, if you so choose, through sovereign free will and choice, say yes telepathically to me in your mind's eye so that you can receive these frequency realignments, focusing on the heart chakra, the third eye, and the crown, recalibrating through these different channels, the circuitry system, and the meridian lines, allowing for you to have more receptivity into truth and being able to surrender to the choice point of connection. Mare taya kiana, sedi sadaya kore, dish andai e kiana, radaye, nandaye anaye, onaye are, ai sadaye kai, onaye, isarai anaye, isoro, inai, rosaraye, anaye, utare, indararoye anaye, andaraye anaye, andararoye anare, indaraya, go osa ata ara, mi ishi iki, no soto ota ara etisha ande e, baase e kia, baasa e kia, no oshoto ko okoe a nae, arroto, arroto, arroto okoe, mish iti sa e ka, ra ati nae e. Taking 3 really deep breaths from the diamond center of the earth all the way up to the heavens, breathing in and out. And anchoring yourself into your center of your heart, placing your right hand on your heart and your left hand over the top of your heart, and just returning your energy completely home. Returning your light body home and bringing all of you back to the here and to the now. Beautiful. If you would like to further integrate this information, you can journal with the question, what about my reality do I not want to accept? And you can allow that question to send you through the different layers of your consciousness and bring awareness to emotions, belief systems, and constructs as to why you might be blindsiding yourself and learning through challenge rather than connection. And if you feel as though you are wanting to further this energy and continue on with it, then I would invite you to go out and place your feet on the earth and just ask to connect into the earth grids of where the information channel was connected to. And you can sit in breath or meditation and allow for more of that frequency and connection through the channels of the Council of One to come through, and might allow for a little bit more insight. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's live. And if you are not subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. If you would like to donate to my mission and to my directive, I have a donation link in my link tree. And for further work, I am facilitating and have co-created with the beautiful priestesses of the mystery school that I run called the Purity of Isis. And there is an event called the Temple of Light, and it's available for individuals in person that are in Australia on the Sunshine Coast and may want to have a sister day and activation. And that is a full day event, but it's also going to be streamed online. So you can create a sisterhood space with your sisters at home and set up ceremony and come on the journey so that you can receive all of the deliciousness of remembrance and see if the mystery school and further initiations into your own gifts, abilities is for you and to be supported on your soul's path. If you are a man or if you're a woman that is not interested in that, we have a facilitated quantum journey for the 1010 portal called Soul's Love. And that will be a 2-hour quantum experience where there is facilitation between myself and 5 other sisters to take you through DNA activations, recalibrations, awakening into the high heart, the connection to your soul's path, your soul's aligned sacred truth. There will be Merkaba activations, light language, coding, recalibration into different frequencies that are new into the earth. So that will be a really beautiful transition point if you have been following these different time junctions, because they're all very important for our new earth signature. And both, they will be on my link tree. One is already there. The other one I will make sure I do straight after this call. If there's anyone that you know that would resonate to my channel, please subscribe, share, and post. I love you so much. Ahava, thank you. Bye.